But I want to tell you another story about ideology that can show you both how blinding it can be and also how seductive for really smart, good people. Because this is not, willful blindness isn't a function of intelligence or even, I would argue, virtue. Just after the Second World War in Oxford, there was a very fascinating physician named Alice Stewart. Now, Alice was unusual, partly because she was female, she was divorced, she had 2 kids. And she was also unusual because she had a real passion for the new emerging field of epidemiology. And as a good, ambitious scientist, she knew that the way to make her name was to find a very hard problem and solve it. And what Alice chose as her problem was really intriguing, which was the rise of childhood cancers in post-war Britain. Alice couldn't get very much funding. She got a £1,000 grant. She did what all great female entrepreneurs do, which is she leveraged a huge network of people to help her. She, of course, was working on pieces of paper and carbon paper and brown envelopes, which she sent out to district nurses all over the country. And she completed what became ultimately the largest childhood cancer study in the United Kingdom ever to this day. And as the responses started to come back, the answer jumped out with statistical clarity of a kind epidemiologists mostly only dream of. By a rate of 3 to 1, the answer to the question, had the mother ever had an X-ray when pregnant, the answer was yes. That there was an absolute and extreme correlation between babies getting cancer and their mothers having been X-rayed during the pregnancy. And this was so clear statistically that Alice rushed into print. Everybody got very excited. There was discussion about the Nobel Prize. And one of the things Alice said was, we have to hurry up and study all the other childhood cancers, because obviously we're going to stop doing this, and then they're going to go away, and we won't be able to study them and understand everything about this anymore. Well, she didn't need really to have hurried, because it was 26 years before the practice of X-raying pregnant women was abandoned by the British medical establishment. And at this time, they reckon there was a child dying every week. Now, what was going on? How could the medical establishment, in the face of this data, not change its practices? What on earth was going on? Well, what would the explanation to this really shocking example of willful blindness is something called threshold theory, which was a prevalent theory at the time that maintained that up to a point, a threshold, everything's safe. And then you cross a point, and then it becomes dangerous. And what Alice was saying was that for pregnant mothers, or for fetuses, there was no level of radiation that was safe. None. Accepting Alice Stewart's findings would have meant abandoning threshold theory. Scientists love theories. I know, I'm married to a scientist. He does love his theory, sometimes I think more than his family. But, you know, we all love these theories and ideas that make sense of our experience, they make sense of our information, and we're afraid to let them go, because then what do we have? Chaos. Now, 26 years after Alice published her results, Richard Doll did very quietly, in a very small article in The Lancet, retire threshold theory, but not before enormous damage had been done. Threshold theory was a kind of ideology. It was a prevailing theory, a way of seeing the world. We all have these. We all have ideologies that say governments are better, smaller, or the best way to measure value is through money, or there is a moral imperative to intervention. We all have these theories, and they often blind us to evidence that stares us in the face.